Please welcome a global thought leader in talent and leadership. He's advised Fortune 100 companies, coached leaders at every stage of their careers, and headed learning and development worldwide at Microsoft. With over 1 million followers, he's been named a LinkedIn top voice, one of the world's top 10 learning experts, and Forbes calls him one of India's most interesting globalists. He's also the best-selling author of Dreamers and Unicorns and the brand new Career 3.0. Give it up for Abhijit Bhaduri.
In this world of AI, if you have to talk to someone to understand what does careers in the future, what does careers 3.0 looks like, then Abhijit is the right person.
Probably I would advise my 8-year-old to learn many more languages. But I think I lost out on making a whole lot of friends.
In the 35 years you worked at Wipro and PepsiCo and Colgate and Microsoft, and learning in HR has been, and talent has been your key domain.
We start doing anything. We are a dreamer. We have lots of dreams. You are starting off in your career, and then you kind of, go through different experiences. And some of us become unicorns, and some of us take different kinds of paths.
In this world of AI, if you have to talk to someone to understand what does careers in the future, what does careers 3.0 looks like, then Abhijit is the right person. And one of the books and the newsletter that I really admire is called Dreamers and Unicorns. So we're going to have great conversations today. Welcome, Abhijit, to the IgnitedNeurons Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me here. It's such a delight to see you again.
It is an absolute pleasure. And it's been 8 years since we last, I think 8 or 9 years since we last spoke. But it just seems like yesterday I saw you with the same energy, the same smile, and you look exactly the same.
Well, thank you.
So Vijay, the podcast, the first question, we kind of get into the deep dive of the conversation, and we start by asking, if that 8-year-old Abhijit, the little boy, wherever that 8-year-old was growing up, if that 8-year-old were to come and meet you right now, what kind of a conversation will emerge between the two of you?
Well, I think one of the things that I would talk about is probably I would advise my 8-year-old to learn many more languages. So I used to be really good at it. And so learning new languages, learning new musical instruments, each one of them actually opens up a massive door, but nothing like learning a completely different language. So that's one I would definitely talk about. The second I would say is, each time you feel happy, make 2 more people happy, somebody else. 2x, give back 2x. And I would probably say that try and understand yourself, through the eyes of an enemy, because that's one of the best ways to understand what you're missing. Because your friends only see something good in you, your family loves you, they see what's nice in you. You never really get to see, but you have to deal with it. So you don't get to see what the enemy sees, but you have to deal with it. And so just being sensitive to that, I think, is one of the pieces I would say. So
It's very interesting. So learn languages or music instruments, because that's a skill that stays. And then each time you feel happy, make 2 more people. So 2x the happiness in the world, so spread it. And then third is fascinating, that watch yourself from the lens of an enemy. What would he be surprised with? Like when he sees you at the current state, what would he be surprised by seeing? Like what happened to the trajectory of the life, or what happened to the dreams that we had, Abhijit, at 8 years old?
So I was a person who was always really living. I moved between many cities. Growing up, my father was in a transferable job, so I moved between many cities. And I was a very quiet kid. I was really someone who just simply read a lot, but I didn't really have a whole lot of friends because of the fact that we had moved so much. I didn't really build a whole lot of friends until I, probably the final years of my school, maybe the last 1 or 2 years, when we were there for a couple of years. And then I continued through college. Then I have friends from college. And then, of course, over that phase in my life, yes, I made a lot of friends. But I think I lost out on making a whole lot of friends, when I compare people who have stayed in one city. Now, here, when I look around, there's so many people who've gone to the same school and have been with those friends from the time they were like 3 years old, 5 years old. So now, of course, I realize that there is an advantage to having moved around and all of that. I get that. But I'm saying, if you want the best of both worlds, I would have loved to move around and have all those friends. So So that's what, and therefore, I think learning languages is a great way to make friends instantly. And it is sort of passes all barriers, and you build really deep friendships with people who you can articulate yourself best with. And the more fluent you are, the more you understand the nuance of languages, and the more you understand how to sort of put the idea across in a manner which makes sense to the other person, not just to you. Otherwise, you're constrained by what you can convey.
Yeah. Language is the way you can express what you feel, think, and so much more. But what's interesting is like, and you and I were just talking about how I moved to Melbourne, and you've also moved countries and cities and continents, and so you're in Seattle right now. One thing that we as a family discuss a lot is that when you move countries, then you let go of certain friendships to make new ones. But at each stage of making new friendships, or it takes a lot of effort. So, how do you think that has impacted you in terms of not having those deep bonds in the early years, or having like, yeah, friendships? How do you think that's impacted you?
In the last couple of years, technology has improved so much. It's just very easy to stay connected with friends, and really, so that's really in the recent times, that's not been a problem. I've been in touch with, and I've also been privileged that I can travel. So, for work or otherwise for holidays. So each time that I've gone back, I make it a point to meet friends and spend time with them. So that has not been a problem. It is friends who I had in school when I was growing up. The first 9 years of school. I don't really have too many friends there, that I'm in touch with. I've very recently gone back to, and I was part of the alumni event in school and college by sheer coincidence. I was there, last time I was in India. A week apart, I attended in different cities, the school alumni get together, and also the college get together. So I kind of revived a lot of those friendships.
Amazing. Love that. Love that. The three books, I want to kind of bring them to center stage because there are so many. Like, I feel like the 1 hour that we have is going to be less, but you've had experience, and I was looking and I was stalking your LinkedIn profile. Uh, in the 35 years you worked at Wipro and PepsiCo and Colgate and Microsoft, and learning in HR has been, and talent has been your key domain. I really feel like this word dreamers and unicorns, and also how career 3.0 can be thought about. They come really close to each other. So imagine that the audience that we have for this conversation is someone who's, say, in their 30s, has had about 8 to 10 years of career and life they've built. They have dreams, they want to do more, but something's stopping them. Or they're in a state of flux, like, oh, so much happening, AI and this and that. Like, what do I do with life? How do we have this conversation that will help them? So yeah, just open the Pandora's box wherever you want to take this.
So I think when you think about, the term dreamers and unicorns is as applicable to organizations as it is to people. When we start doing anything, we are a dreamer. We have lots of dreams. You're starting off in your career, and then you kind of, go through different experiences. And some of us become unicorns, and some of us take different kinds of paths, and some of us, in my book, Dreamers and Unicorns, I talk about four kinds. You have dreamers, you have unicorns, you have market shapers. These are the people who are really defining the way we live and work. I mean, so those are the market shapers. And then, of course, you have a scenario where you have people who stagnate in between. They some just remain dreamers. They don't become unicorns. Some become unicorns but don't become market shapers. And the reason for that is just each stage you just really have to reinvent yourself. So Career 3.0 was a phase for me to really put together what helps some people really reinvent themselves in different ways. And one of them, for example, is, in Career 1.0, you have one ecosystem in which you're playing. Think about one fish pond. So you know everything about the fish pond. And even within that, there are some ways you can sort of really grow. So you can um, understand. So let's say I start off in one part of talent management, HR, whatever, law, finance. Learn about what your part of the work, how that fits in with what the other colleagues do. So if you're in finance, understand what does treasury do? What does bills payable do? What does accounts payable do? What does accounts receivable do? What does, the accounting practice do? How do they interact with audit? So you begin to get a view, which is horizontal. You also sort of then, at the same time, in the work that you are doing, you become deep. As you are beginning to see things for yourself, you build depth. The second thing that happens is to actually start looking at it from the point of view of the customer. So if you have the departments that you're working with, the client systems that you're working with, whatever that might be, you might be the HRBP for a particular business unit or a particular team, whatever that is. So you understand your role and refine it in terms of that. So that's how you build depth and breadth in that particular field. Of course, at a later point of time, if you've got a little more years of experience, now you're trying to actually see either, I'm going to assume that you either may decide that you're going to move around, or you decide that, what, I'm going to really start to see this from the outside. You take a trip into another part of the organization, maybe change the geography. So, for example, when I was, working at Colgate, I got an opportunity to come and work, as somebody who was responsible for implementing the SAP HR module. You know, I had never done project management. I had never done, SAP, by any stretch of imagination. I really didn't know what it was. So you become a novice all over again. It's a terrible feeling because, you are just when you're beginning to kind of, find your feet, you again get churned and sort of moves. This is one way in which Career 2.0 is about adding a little more complexity. And by complexity, it is about putting yourself into in my case, it gave me an opportunity to live and work in the region, in the Asia Pacific region. So live in a different country, have a portfolio of countries where I was trying to implement this. Each country has its cultural nuance, it has its history, it has its opportunities, it has its strengths. So you begin to learn all of that. So what it does is it builds context into what you're doing. And then, of course, subsequently, your phase 3 is so when you do this two little gigs side by side, that is Career 2.0. Two ecosystems, two skills. Career 3.0, which is what I wrote about, is where I see the world going because business models are dying really fast. Your skills are sort of withering away in 2.5 years. So that's the half life of a skill. And in this particular phase, you also have the additional complexity that human beings are living to be close to 100. So then, in which case, your work life. So this whole phase that you are spreading out your work life over much longer, you're adding substantially more, 30, 40 years more to that workspace. How are you going to sort of operate on that? So that's the whole reason why you juggle multiple ecosystems, you sharpen multiple skills. And so in the book, I talk about 6 skills that you build. So that's really the way that I would think about a career strategy.
Got it. I'm making copious notes because so and love how I can almost like visually see it. So 1.0 is a fish pond. You get in, you get out, just one task, and don't have to worry about the complexities that your workspace offers or the world offers. 2.0 is when your different ecosystems are interacting. For some, it could be a different geography. For some, it could shape up as maybe different skills that you're using or different diverse markets that you're leading in, all of that. 3.0,
Or it could, or 2.0 could even be within the function.
correct.
Let's say you're a HRBP, now you become a L&D specialist, or you're managing performance and you're managing, let's say, hiring. So it could be anything. 2.0 is just you're widening your skill base.
Yeah, yeah. And 3.0 is like metaverse. It's multi-dimensional. There's no end to it. And what I'm seeing is like there are too many variables there. And you spoke about 6 skills before we even go there. And with AI, I think there's an added level of complexity, as you were saying, because things are becoming redundant so quickly, whether that's business models or people skills or whatever. So who should be scared in these times, Abhijit?
No, I mean, I actually don't see that as being scared because the reason is it creates new opportunities. We'll add many more jobs. So that's one part of it. I really think that we are going to actually depend a lot more. Human skills are going to be at a premium. So, if anything at all, it is, as you see, I talked about my 8-year-old self. I said, learn the languages. Why? Because, it helps you to widen your own aperture. You are beginning to look at things from different language, making someone happy, really thinking about really what does the other person want. So building that people sensitivity is going to be actually the skill for the future. So I didn't think about it like that, but when I sort of go back and sort of reflect on what I just said, it's understanding yourself from the eyes of the enemy. It actually allows you to understand when somebody is completely different from you, what is it that's coming in the way. And you're continuously working with people, so it's the people side of it which absolutely gives you the opportunity to thrive in the future. And technology will change. People actually have remained pretty much the same. Our needs are, there is an external shell which is a little different, but the software inside our mind is very much the same. We all have similar needs, we have similar perspectives. So if you understand what is common, the very famous phrase that people say, we are like everybody else in some respects, we are like a few people in some respects, and like nobody else in some respects. That I think is really the opportunity.
Love it, love it. How empathy, people sensitivity, and yes, what you spoke about with the 8-year-old Abhijit, it just connects so beautifully to this aspect. But what I also say, Abhijit, and that's where kind of I feel that not everyone has the operating system or the software within to, and I love this phrase, right, to learn, to relearn, to unlearn. And I think that's what the world keeps pushing. So what I'm inclining towards is that there are people who don't have that mindset. There are people who don't find joy in their work. They don't find meaning in their work. And if human life's increased and they have to do more work, they feel like, what the hell, how do we support them? Like if we were to give them something in the next, say, 10 minutes and have them shift how they operate, where do you want them to start?
I think what has happened is we have turned work into an extremely, extremely, extremely transactional process. And that takes the joy out of anything. Human beings thrive when there is no transaction. I mean, there can be transaction as a result and a byproduct, but it can't be the only reason to connect. Because when somebody, so which is why I don't particularly like the use of the word networking. It just sort of has the connotation, maybe that's just me. It has the connotation that I'm sort of, whether I'm stating it to you on day 1 or day 30, I'm doing it with the intention that, okay, Utkarsh has something that I desperately need, and so I'm going to be friends. So I'm going to do everything to be friends. And people spot that fakeness right away, you know. So it never happens. However, if you see that if we are friends and we have a relationship where people understand each other, then it's fun to work together on something. And, I bring something to the table, then you bring something to the table. This whole aspect of being other focused is very important. Networking is self focused. I'm here to fend for myself. It's a very individualistic society's view. Whereas, I've grown up in a collectivist society, and I think that's where the magic is. Um, you will find when we build walls around ourselves, then you feel that loneliness becomes overpowering. So that leads to people feeling lonely. There is grief, there is sadness. It's all of that. When you have deep friendships, genuine friendships, you build those deep relationships. That's what happiness is all about. So I think if you are able to understand that, that I think is where I would like to play.
Very, very interesting. I think what you started this sharing with was very powerful, because what we have done is that we have made work transactional. And if it will stay transactional, then there is no joy to it. And if there is no joy to it, then you don't want to do it. And this morning, so it's about 9:30 my time when we're recording this, my son and I were coming back from the gym. And he asked me, I don't know why, that if you win $10 million in lottery, would you still work? And I said, I'll choose what I want to work on, which is like I was telling him, like, I love to have these podcast conversations. And I would still continue to do that even if there's $10 million in the bank sitting with me, because there's joy in it, there is learning in it, and there's growth in it. I would eliminate some parts of my life, work life, because I don't find them too. So I'm thinking that how do you build that deeper connection is through relationships, which then leads to happiness, is what you're saying.
And that the work that you do inherently must be fulfilling. A lot of us are stuck, because we haven't deepened the skills. So if your proficiency is low, think about it. When you are learning to drive and you're on the highway, you can't enjoy it. It's a very stressful experience. It's a terrible experience. If you are good at driving, it's a happy experience. You can listen to music, you can chat with people, you're still on the road, you're safe, it's all of that. So, proficiency and skill in what you are doing is a very important piece. This is something that, is it gives you the entry point to getting hired, but you thrive and you enjoy the place where you build human relationships. Places where I have worked where the human relationship was non existent, it was very transactional. I can't come and talk to you about anything. It's very transactional. Those are the places I've hated and I couldn't wait to get out. The places where I have built deep relationships, those relationships continue even now. So I think it's the human relationships that define whether you are happy in the workplace or not, whether you are happy in the place where you live or not, whether you are happy in the relationships you have or not. It's just that.
And it depends on the human being, is what I'm kind of continuing this into, to build those relationships, to build those bonds. And as I was saying to you, that Melbourne now feels like home in 3 years, it's because of the relationships that we've built here, so that there's no sense of loneliness.
Yep. Imagine if nobody spoke to you there, it would not feel like home. It would be an alien place. It's no different from a city which you're passing through, so it's like that airport seat. You don't really care about it. You are sitting there now and you are not going to be coming back there in a hurry. So then it's an airport seat. Work has become like that. So you need to bring back, the complete self, which means my ideas, my skills, my network, and it's all of that needs to be brought in.
Love it. Bring your complete self to work. How do you think, in your experience, you've worked at Microsoft and others, how do you think organizations can be the catalyst in helping an individual bring that full, complete self to work?
Organizations don't become catalysts. I think the individuals make that effort. At the end of the day, I mean, I've worked in different places. If those people come into the organization that I'm today miserable about, it would change. And if, so it's really like, sometimes you see an airline gets bought over by somebody else. It's the people who make the airlines. It's not about the shareholding. It's not about changing the dress or the logo or something. The service level will remain great or terrible depending on the people. So, it has nothing to do with, the external shell. It's the human beings that make the difference.
Yeah, yeah. A few minutes ago, you spoke about our software being very same, like our needs as human beings are very, the shell might have changed, but at the end of the day, we all want fulfillment, we all want joy, we all want to stay safe, stability, certainty, all of these beautiful words, right? How do you think your software, and based on your personal life and sharing, how has your software evolved over the years, and what have you learned through that experience?
I think there is a point of time where in the story that this is a reflection that happened when I wrote my first work of fiction. And as I was writing that, one of the things, of course, it's said in the words of the character there, and in Mediocre but Arrogant, I talk about the fact that if you want to be successful, think about yourself. If you want to be happy, think about others. You know, so the whole notion of success comes in the early stages of our life because you want to, build the financial cushion, you want to establish yourself professionally, you want to explore whatever. All of those things, you're focused completely on yourself. For me, the other part of it happened almost by accident because, I was teaching at Excella, right? It also, gave me a chance to connect to a very large set of people uh, every time. And in the work that I was doing, I was working at Tata Steel. I was working, running different workshops. Each time you would meet a different set of people. So for me, those relationships did not only end at the time of the workshop. With most of the people, I stayed in touch. So even now, if I think about it, my relationships have continued with many of those people. And I showed the people that I worked with, my relationships have continued. So I think that whole process is never about what you are seeking to acquire out of that entire thing. It's what you give that really builds the relationship. Because if you really see, as someone told me on one of my podcasts, which was a great summation, he said, in give and take, give comes first before you take. So, it's that whole element, and which fundamentally means you focus on the other person. So, in a workspace where I have to really watch what I say to you, are you going to misinterpret? Are you going to be suing me? Are you going to be that is a recipe for a low trust environment. And human beings hate low trust environments.
As we are talking about the words happiness and relationships are coming again and again in our conversation, makes me think of that Harvard study. I think it was a 70, 80-year-old long study where they tracked from 1940s to about 2000 something, and relationships became the primary driver of someone's level of happiness slash fulfillment, and we can use different word. How about the relationship itself?
This notion of self and others, self exists in relationship with others. Self doesn't exist in isolation. That's one of the ways in which the Eastern philosophy, specifically Indian philosophy, is very different from the Western philosophy. The Western philosophy has one truth, one self actualization, which all of it really focuses on me, going all the way up. My food, my safety, my relationships, my self esteem, my self actualization. It sort of goes, only focuses on me. Um, and that leads to loneliness. Whereas when you do it in conjunction with others, it's the give and take. Each of these moments becomes, an opportunity for you to really thrive. So then you are not hoarding more than what you need. You are also very comfortable giving because you've also received. So that, I think, is the basic difference when you put yourself in relationship with the rest of the world. And that's a very fundamental shift in the paradigm. And if you see, the Indian philosophy doesn't have one right answer for anything. I mean, you see that gods lie. Gods can be treacherous. I mean, Krishna in Mahabharata, lies. So the whole notion is, it's dependent on the context. At that time, it's necessary to do this, and it's contextual. Whereas in many other places, in the individualist cultures, it's one truth, one thing, one word. The moment you think about it like that, it's a very black and white world. The cultures which have been thousands of years old have all survived because there has been the whole notion of adaptability. That if this is what's needed to survive, then so be it. You know. So if you see, that's been the magic of the philosophy that I've grown up with. That this is meant that you go out of your comfort zone and adapt to something. Today we are talking about it ironically in the context of AI. We are saying the adaptable will be the ones who will survive, and that's exactly it. That how do you survive, because that's the opportunity.
Yeah, I need a second to process this because I love Mahabharata and the intricacies of how Krishna behaves as the OG coach throughout. So what you're saying is that self cannot exist in isolation, and self exists in the relationships, in the interactions we have with others. So this is more like a dynamic structure to self rather than like an isolated me kind of structure. I absolutely resonate with what you're saying. I don't like Maslow's hierarchy because I don't think that's how you evolve in life. It can be deeper. Whereas maybe what I feel is like topple the pyramid to say that let's build that identity of self. And since you and I are speaking, identity of self in relationship with others, and then build from there. And yes, we need some level of physiological safety, not discounting that. But this
So for each one of them, put self and the other together. For each one of those steps, suddenly it becomes very meaningful because you're not just looking at, uh, food, clothing, and shelter. Think about it. You have responsibility in the family. You've got a, a family that you are looking at, and you play a role in not just, having the stuff for yourself alone. Think about it. If there was a choice to be made, that tomorrow, for whatever reason, there's only one meal portion available. Chances are that, in the family, you're not going to say, I'm going to get all of it myself, assuming you are not allowed to share it. Only one person will be able to have that.
right.
You would give it to the one who's most needy. So in the family, it operates in that model that it goes to, the youngest or the needy and whatever, it's somebody who's hungry. You would do that. It's not mathematical. So in the systems which are driven by, if how would you divide, two biscuits between seven people? If you sort of see that,
Yeah.
the mathematical option is 2 by 7.
Correct.
The other is to give it to the person who needs it the most.
Fascinating. Oh, so interesting. And it's almost like thriving in that gray zone because it's not about being black and white.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Eastern philosophy is entirely in the gray zone.
Yeah.
And therefore, it's therefore a philosophy which has survived over thousands of years for exactly this reason. It has not given you one right answer and nothing else. If you do that one right answer, then that's the only way you are accepted. It's not. It's just like, I mean, and look at it like this. In my family, my mother was somebody who had, who used to pray actively, every day. She had a ritual. Yeah. She never once said, you need to do it. I would sometimes do it. Sometimes for years I didn't do it. Then I would do it. Then I wouldn't do it. And it never, my dad was always similar zone. He followed a completely different spiritual path altogether. He didn't believe in, prayers and all of that. But we were all free in many ways. We were free to explore whatever. And I remember at one point of time in my college, as I was reading, I was trying to read about different religions, and I said, I'm going to change my religion to something else. Parent was shocked and said, okay, if that's what you want to do, go for it. I expected them to really throw a fit and protest and what are you talking about? They said, yeah, that's no, a different matter, fairly indifferent to all of them, but that apart.
And it beautifully, like how you've connected it to creating that freedom, right? Because if there's no black and white, there's no right answer or there's no right or wrong answer, you have the freedom to explore. And it applies so beautifully to careers. It applies so beautifully to all aspects of our existence, whether that's work or life.
Look at it like this, that, the role that I did. So let's say in Wipro, I was a chief learning officer. Yeah. That role never existed when I was studying in college, doing my MBA. That role never existed. Learning and development, that term didn't exist. It was training. It was a training department and then evolved to do something else. The field that, human resource development was human resources management, human resources, then talent management. Then the employment has changed from being full-time employment to part-time contract, gig, this, that.
Yeah.
Offices moved from being one place to anywhere in the planet. Everything has changed.
Everything's changed.
Now, the ones who have not changed are the ones who are either trying to bring back yesterday into today, right? Them, and therefore they're trying to say, I'm going to use my power to put brakes on this change. And you can't.
Yeah, you can't. It's not even possible. And I think those are the people, Abhijit, that I'm scared for, who feel that they don't want to change. Change is not happening. They're not going to adapt to change. And they're going to stay in that black and white.
Fear has two responses. Fear, in fact, I'm talking about it because also that's the topic of my next newsletter on LinkedIn. And so now what I do is I have a smaller version for those who are short on time, who can read just that. And then the deeper version is on Substack, and it's a paid version. So what we are doing there is, if you think about it, fear can either freeze me. I'm so afraid that I can't run. I'm frozen. Or fear can make me run. Yeah. I'm saying that the adaptable person actually says, what is really the fear? Because from a behavioral lens, my fear is loss aversion. It's a loss of my identity, right? I have built my expertise or whatever. Let's say as a journalist, I've done this over the years. I've written for like all kinds of newspapers, magazines. Everybody loves my writing. And then one fine day, somebody, types in a prompt and says, but ChatGPT can write this. The fear is loss of identity. It's not so much fear for AI or something else. But once you understand that it's a loss of my identity, I also know that I can recraft my identity. It's not frozen in time. The people who, it's only when we are dead that rigor mortis sets in. You're completely rigid. You can't move. But the person who's alive will move and do things. So I'm therefore really alarmed that, oh, what will human beings do? I mean, we'll find ways. Human beings are very, very adaptable creatures, or at least the ones who are adaptable will thrive.
Yeah, love it. So fear, the deeper fear is the loss of identity. And if you can figure that out, then it's easy to, at least there's a path that you can recraft your identity. And then what's the fear about? Amazing. I want to get into AI, but I also want to talk more about dreamers and unicorns. What does navigating identity in this evolving AI-driven world look like?
It's about the little ways in which we integrate the changes in ourselves. It's really think about it. You've always worn t-shirts. Now somebody's saying you need to wear a shirt to work. So you try it on, you buy one, and you say, yeah, okay, I mean, it's a little weird, but okay, I'm going to give it a shot. And you slowly start using it, and somebody says, that's a nice shirt. And you get used to it. And that's really, uh, you know, it's a little bit of comfort that you experience internally, and it's validation from outside, which is why, going back to what I said, if you're only dependent on yourself, you have no idea what you're doing is right, wrong, ugly, good, bad. You don't know. When you have deep relationships, people will say, oh, you know what? This is looking really nice. You should actually try this and this combination. That'll look even nicer. So you grow with that. So the process of growth necessarily needs another human being, actually many other human beings. So the more you expand your word into a boundaryless, piece, I mean, borrowing from Dreamers and Unicorns, the book, um, that's the whole thesis, that the world is boundaryless. And so you're no longer in that aquarium. Today, that aquarium has become part of the ocean.
Yeah. Process of growth needs many other human beings, and how you can become adaptable in this boundaryless world. Love it. Love it. Career 3.0 was a few years ago, and now I think with the last, say, I would say 6 months to 1 year, with what Sam Altman and ChatGPT and OpenAI and whatever AI has done now. And I created like a website last week through AI, and I have no idea how coding works. So I just love the possibilities that AI is creating. What does career in the AI world look like?
Actually, the book was written at a time when, because as I mentioned, I had a little bit of a head start in understanding what AI was going to do. So I kind of really, my view was careers will operate in these three archetypes: career one, career two, career three, um, which is why the six skills happen. Careers will really run like a portfolio of different things that you will do. And reinvention is going to become so common that we won't sort of really notice it. It's going to become like electricity. It'll be there all the time, you know. Look at it like this, that it's only when it happens one off, then you kind of say, oh my God, I mean, it's so amazing what has happened. But historically, if you look at it, you put all these changes, take a little bit of a bird's eye view. You take a bird's eye view, change has always been, from the last sort of first industrial revolution to before that, agrarian economy, first industrial revolution, second, then of course, all the ITs related stuff, digital transformation, and now AI. It's all a continuum. Each time it builds on something else which is already there, and then you sort of, apply it, and then it triggers further growth. It is hard to imagine that, say, in a place like India, which, as they say, you have three screens. So you have the television screen, the laptop screen, and your mobile screen. because the laptop needed at that point of time connectivity through, wires and pipes and all of that, and just was very expensive. Ironically, India leapfrogged from the wired economy of the telephone or like the television straight to the mobile. It skipped the laptop part of it altogether. So if you look at it today, is digitally a really fast moving economy. I mean, it's one of the cheapest places in the world to have digital connectivity. Yeah. So if you think about it, this kind of a process is continuously happening. So your careers will evolve in the same way. When, one kind of technology happens, it creates another kind of a skill set and organizations crop up to manage that. So in Career 3.0, it opens with this basic model where I say that your work and your worker and workplace have to be in tandem. So the nature of the work decides the kind of skills that the worker must have, right? If you are running a motor repair shop, you don't need a cook because you need a different skill. Even the best chef can't be employed there. So it's not about being good or bad, it's relevance to that job. The workplace is basically a marketplace that brings the work and the worker together, and it does through policies. So it's you are creating the policy. So think about it in AI today. Just the other day, Facebook or Meta was actually hiring people with $300 million salaries and bonuses and all that stuff, right? This morning they say we are no longer going to do that. Okay, they've frozen that. They've also put an internal freeze on movements. So this process is a dynamic process. Tomorrow, some other place is going to really start doing something similar. So workplace and worker, workplace will always move in tandem. The challenge comes because a lot of our workplace practices, which should have moved when, work moved to the cloud, it moved to, it became boundaryless in many ways. We didn't really change workplace practices. COVID forced us to do that. Because during the pandemic, we said, okay, work can be done from home. Suddenly people said, oh gosh, yes, of course. Why am I going to the office 5 days a week? Now you kind of have that tug of war that some people say, well, you want to work with us? You'll end up here, right? Uh, so, yeah, that's the workplace norm. So they therefore will attract a certain kind of person and will not attract a certain kind of person. But my prediction is that very, very soon we will see that more people will be working outside as gig workers and freelancers and will earn more than what a full-time employee does. And you see a lot of that. 60% of most companies' workforce, between 30 and 60, depending on the firm, 30 to 60% of your workforce is dedicated not on your roles, right?
Massive.
And if this is the case, and one day it is going to be, so today a lot of people, 30, 40% people have two jobs for a range of reasons, because of the money, because of what they are trying to learn, because what they do is passion, because of, they already have this going, it gives them more money, it allows this flexibility, it pays for their vacations, many reasons. This today seems like such novelty. It's not going to be there. It's just that you don't know about it. There are more people doing it than what you know.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And this is going to be, so it's a very different workplace. The moment the economy slows down, the employer says, hey, listen, you're going to work the way I want you to. The reality is, if you have the skills that the employer needs, the top chef can decide, I'm going to charge, I'm taking the same meta example. The top AI person is saying, hey, don't give me this regular salary structure and say, oh, the marketplace doesn't pay more than this. I want 300 million. You'll jolly well pay me 300 million.
Yeah.
Now, everybody says that what is Utkarsh doing that he's getting 300? I can't. You get the skills, you will get 300. If I don't pay you, somebody else will. So it is the skills economy.
Yeah. Love it. Love it. So how you develop your skills and how this workplace worker dynamic keeps evolving in tandem and how you evolve with it, the variability, the gray, the thriving in the adaptability, all of that comes in. The 6 skills that you spoke about, and I know we're getting into time. I think we'll have a part 2, Abhijit, where we'll speak about skills. But Career 3.0, 6 skills. What are those skills, 6 skills that you can just phrase them for me.
Yeah. So one is, can you learn what you've never been formally taught? Two, proof of learning is, are you able to teach it in your own words without using anything that helped you learn what you did? You can't use that same content, simplify it and teach it. Three, can you become an outstanding storyteller? Four, because the more you are each one is linked. So you become a great storyteller, you are more effective in your teaching and so on, and your learning. Four is, can you become a great personal brand? If you are a great storyteller, chances are that you are an outstanding personal brand. Fifth is, can you play in multiple ecosystems and operate flexibly with that? And sixth is, think of your skills like a VC thinks of the portfolio. Some skills you are an expert, some skill you are a novice. It's all of that.
So folks, we're definitely having episode part 2 of this, because I want to dive into each one of them. Such fascinating. So learn, teach, storyteller, personal brand, play into multiple ecosystems, and think of your skills like a VC. Epic. If you've not read the book, definitely buy the book. We'll put the link in the show notes. As we're getting towards the end of this conversation, I loved everything. I need to go back to my notes, and I often tell the listeners that if you're listening and something sticks, write it down, because memory is very short-lived. But if we now continue to our trajectory of meeting that 80-year-old Abhijit a few decades into the future, career 7.0, or whatever that 80-year-old looks like, what advice, what one piece of advice would that 80-year-old have to your current self?
I just think the 80-year-old must have the curiosity of the 8-year-old. So that's the first thing that I want to say. And then, since we did talk about the VC and the portfolio, building on that, I mean, can you be a novice in more areas than you are an expert in? So if I am an expert in, say, one area or two areas, can I be a novice in 4 areas? So it's really. And finally, probably the most sort of powerful thing that I would recommend is be comfortable being forgotten.
Let's take a moment. Have the curiosity of the 8-year-old, be a novice in more areas than you're an expert in, and comfortable being forgotten. This is worth in gold. I'm glad this conversation happened. I loved every bit of it. For all our listeners who are still listening 50 minutes into the conversation, I think this would have added value. That's why you're here. So if you're still here, then appease to the algorithm gods and just like, share, subscribe, whatever you have to do on YouTube. If you're on a podcast platform, then send it to someone who you feel would find value in this conversation that Abhijit and I had. But Abhijit, we'll close with the promise that we will do a part 2.
Of course, I would love to be back. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being here. Loved all the things that you shared, and you've left me in a place of reflection, because these 6 skills plus everything that we spoke about is so on point in how one should lead and live their life.
Thank you very much. And if you like it, I'll write about it on my LinkedIn newsletter and my Substack newsletter. So check it out.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Have a good rest of your evening.
Thank you.
That's a wrap for today's episode of the Ignite Neurons podcast. If you found value in this, here's what I recommend. Take out a paper or a diary and just put down one thing that you can change about your life because you listened to this podcast. I'd really appreciate if you could share that in the comments below, because I'd love to see how it's impacting you or not. If you're on YouTube and watching this, then like, share, and subscribe, and please make this wisdom go viral. And if you're someone who loves your podcast on the go, then Spotify and Apple Podcasts are your go-to places, or wherever you're listening to this, just like, share it with a friend, and leave a comment, because I'd love to engage, love to have a conversation with you. Until next time, till we meet again, keep those neurons ignited, stay curious, keep learning, be someone who embraces a growth mindset, and I look forward to seeing you very soon.